Hi, welcome back. I hope you're enjoying our field trips. Also, I hope you're finding your assignments easy from your textbook. And remember that the face-to-face class has class twice a week, and this is your substitute for sitting in class. So I want to make it as relevant as possible, and so I'm guiding you through the lecture and asking you to answer questions. So the first thing I asked you today for your quiz was to write down a definition of a forest. So we want to delve a little bit deeper. We're getting a little bit more into technical sciences. And there's going to start to be right and wrong answers instead of just reflections on what your beliefs are. So with forest definitions, I asked you to write down what is a forest in your words. We see these different forests. They're in different parts of the country. They're different kinds of trees. They're managed differently. They're planted differently. And I need you to think about that definition before we move on. So look at your definition right now. It was in your quiz tool here. And see if you answered any of these. So instead of filling in the following chart, just look at this over and say, in your definition of a forest, did the land have to be covered with trees? Did it have to be natural? Was it used for a particular purpose? Can it be used for recreation? And does it have a different size requirement? So each of these can be used as a definition depending on the agency or the organization that's defining it. So what we're going to go back to is what we started with the first week, and that is our definition that a complex community of associated trees, shrubs, and other plants and animals is what we'll refer to as a forest. Number two, this is review again. It's an art and a science. And we want to manage the forest to yield quality and quantity of forest lands to satisfy human needs. And what's happening over the years is that the needs are changing. So the needs are wide ranging, making management of forestry a much more complicated science. So now, what is a tree? There's rules and then there's exceptions to the rules. But generally speaking, a tree is a size of 15 to 25 feet tall. It has a trunk of 3 to 4 inch diameter, and it has one main woody trunk. Shrubs will many times be multi-stemmed, but a tree will generally speaking have one main woody trunk. They live longer than most plants, and they're perennials. Now remember, a perennial is a plant that grows year after year. An annual grows for 1 year, like a marigold and petunia, and then dies. And a biennial, bi meaning two, is a plant that grows for 2 years, like a mullein, which we're going to be learning about. And the mullein has vegetative growth. Then the second year it has reproductive growth, that big huge spike, and then it dies after that. If you see more mulleins, and I taught you it was a biennial, it reseeded itself. It did not continue to grow. So there's our first definition of a tree. The study of trees again then is dendrology. Dendro for trees and ology for study. This is the week that we start understanding tree identification. The history of tree ID starts with the famous botanist Linnaeus that created a two-name system for naming plants. So when people were exploring different countries, they were wanting to come to an agreement on what we called those names so we could have conversations between different languages. So we developed this international system. So if you go to Norway and you use the scientific name, it will be exactly the same as it is in the United States. All right. Now, common names are also used, but they vary by location, so they can be misleading. So the Latin names are the universal language. The way we're going to be doing Latin names is the entire name is always italicized in print, as in human beings, being Homo sapiens. If italics are not possible, the alternative is to underline both names. So you'll be using this convention in your writing. Genus is Homo, sapien is species, and Homo is always capitalized, and sapien is always a small letter. So we looked at what is a tree and tree classification by sizes. This is Colonel Armstrong. I actually was just there in California. Height 308 feet, diameter 14.6 feet, approximate age 1400 years old. That was a redwood. Actually, this is the forest where they filmed the Star Wars and the Ewoks. We were looking for Ewoks the whole time. So the smallest tree, when we classify them by size, is a seedling, up to 3 feet tall. A sapling is 3 feet to less than 4-inch DBH, which is about this size. This is about a 4-inch DBH. Totally out of scale there. Smaller than my head. A pole is 4-inch DBH to 11.9 DBH. A standard is 12-inch to 23.9. And a veteran tree is a tree that is 24-inch DBH plus. So that's tree classification by size. Tree classification by crown is dominant, which shows this as the dominant tree, codominant, intermediate, and suppressed. And those definitions are dominant, the tallest tree, codominant, trees receiving most light from the top but blocked on the sides, intermediate, crowns extending into the lower part of the canopy, and suppressed trees have a low growth rate and low vigor as a result of competition. More vocabulary to know is hardwoods are usually broadleaf trees that usually have harder wood. We make furniture out of those. Softwoods are needle-leaved trees like a pine. Deciduous lose their leaves, and evergreen do not lose their leaves / needles, but in fact they do every 2 to 4 years. To introduce the next part of this unit, we're going to be identifying trees now by softwoods and hardwoods. And so I will start by showing you this is an evergreen, and this is like an all-like evergreen. This is an evergreen that's a spruce, and it has single needles. This is also an evergreen, and it's a pine, and it has needles in bundles. So this is good review for after the field trip. The next thing to know is deciduous. This is an oak tree, and deciduous means it loses its leaves over time, and you can see that this has alternate branching, and this maple and this dogwood has opposite branching. Another tree with opposite branching. So we'll be using evergreen and deciduous, opposite, alternate, and we'll also be looking at floral parts. This is called an umbel to identify these trees. I'd like you to answer a few questions now, and it will be automatically graded. And the science of this is that there's going to start being right and wrong answers, and you're going to have a hard time with the next unit unless you understand this one. So see you on the field trip, and good luck with your quiz.